Hey guys and gals, this is Cal from Dirty Weasel, and we return with another episode of the Skyrim Special Edition Modding Guide. This is part 2 of a special series on converting mods from the original game into the Special Edition using the Creation Kit. Part 1 was on setup and tools, and now we move on to converting basic mods. I have 2 examples that show important aspects for you to know about mod conversion. They are simply examples, and information shown can be used for any mod of similar types. We'll go over conversions using both Nexus Mod Manager and Mod Organizer 2, and incorporate SSE Edit in cleaning the mods. As before, the information shown here is for personal use, and no mods converted by you should be distributed to the public without the original mod author's permission. Let's get going on this. Alrighty, and we are here at the desktop, and what this series is going to be basically doing is we're going to start at the beginning. We're going to start with a very simple mod in ESP only, and then move on from there in difficulty. We'll be adding in new tools, new ways of doing things, and kind of getting you up to speed a bit at a time. Let's start first with what we can't do, and that means a mod that uses SKSE is completely out. I'll give you an example. And this is Deadly Dragons, and you can see it's a very popular mod. It has a MCM menu. And because an MCM menu requires SKSE, it can't be at our level. I'll say R because I'm not an advanced modder. I am a mod user, but I'm not a mod creator at the level needed to remove SKSE and the MCM menu from its functioning to make this work. Just consider mods like this completely out of the realm of what we can do. And if you want to see a larger list of things you can do, you can go ahead and put in a tag into the Skyrim Nexus, the SKSE requirements. You can see all sorts of mods, create complete crafting overhaul. Needs SKSE, hard to believe, but all sorts of stuff. So just keep that in mind. You can't do anything with SKSE. Other things to keep in mind: if a older mod uses a TGA file only for its textures, you can't do it. In other words, this scope of this tutorial series will not include how to convert TGAs to DDSs. If you understand what I mean, you understand enough that you know not to do that, because the game will not recognize .tga textures. It will only recognize DDS. So that was really outside the scope of that. I'm not a texture guy. I know how to convert them over, but I think that for the average user, just sticking with the simple basics, there would be plenty of mods to do that you can get around to doing. And you can see I've done about close to 30, I guess, so far for different things. And I keep doing them for different people, the different mod authors or different YouTubers that request that I do a conversion for them, so that they can put it into their YouTube series or, to use for their own purposes, however that may be. But I don't do them for the general public. Just keep that in mind. If you contact me and request a mod to be done, I'm not going to do it. You have to be friends with me, and that's just to protect the mod author's rights. So let's get started. One of the big changes that we're going to be doing is normally I would show you Nexus Mod Manager first, but I think for this series, we're going to start off with Mod Organizer 2. And the main reason for that is I can actually isolate the mod and show you what the creation kit is going to be doing. In the first episode of this series for, converting mods, we went over the creation kit, how to get started, how to get set up, how to go through all those steps. I don't need to go through that again, but make sure you have it set up however you use it. If you're using Mod Organizer 2, make sure you use it on the taskbar and that you can access it through Mod Organizer 2. It should all work just fine. If you're using Nexus Mod Manager, we'll go over that separately, but you're going to use it in isolation or independently. Let's go over the first 2 mods that we're going to do today. We're going to be using White River Priory, mod number 75803. It's one of the ones I use in my Skyrim short story series, and I wanted to have it in my new game. And this was actually the very first mod I converted because I needed it. I wanted it. It wasn't being converted, and I needed it. And the other one is going to be Miravel, is a follower mod that Stu from Couch Warrior TV requested that I do for him so he could have Miravel in with his game. And both of these present very interesting, unique things that need to be covered if you're going to be converting a basic mod. And these two are probably the most common things that you'll be doing, or two of the most common things you'll be doing. Residences, followers, and then weapons. Weapons are a separate thing. We'll be covering that in the next episode of this guide. And that's what I want to talk about right now. Now, if you have 7-zip or WinRAR, this is what you want to do. You want to extract those files. And you can see it's created them over here. And the reason why I do this is so you can see the components of the mod that's being created. So we're going to do that with both of these mods. And there was both of those. We'll take a look at White River Priory first after it's been extracted. And you can see it is a simple ESP only. Nothing very special there. And you see with Miravel, it is an ESP only also. Now, there are multiple ways of doing things. This is just how I do it. I'm going to rename both of these files now that I've extracted, and we're going to rename them. For naming conventions, I'm going to delete the version number and the mod number. And I'm going to go _SE temp. This will become very important later on when we start doing different things, but I want to keep my naming conventions right. So I'm also going to put in underscores in the appropriate places so that when you install these things, it'll be all done correctly. So this will make sense later episodes, but for right now, that's what we're doing. And we're going to rename Miravel also. I'm going to delete the whole thing. I'm just going to call it Miravel SE. But you can name them whatever you want to do. We now have mods that are named Miravel._SE and White River Priory _SE temp. I forgot to do temp on that. So let's get started. We're going into Mod Organizer 2, and we'll just go into our downloads, and we are going to drop White River Priory and Miravel follower mod in there right now. But we're only going to be doing one at a time. If you're using Mod Organizer 2, make sure you have it set up to a vanilla directory. You can see that if it was my Dirty Weasel Media, it has everything in it. But if you want to start doing this properly, have a vanilla setup with nothing installed. If you look at my priority list and my plugins tab, there is nothing set up. So we're going to go ahead and start out with some basics. Those are installed there into Mod Organizer 2. We're going to install White River Priory. And you see manual, the ESP file. Okay, we can go ahead and install that. And we will now scroll down and activate it. And go to our plugins. We should only have White River Priory 1.2.esp. That is correct. The very first thing we're going to do is fire up the creation kit. This is actually fairly easy. All right, here we go. Now, the very first thing you want to do is come over to this folder thing, and this is the one you want to do. You can see all the ESPs we have loaded. You're going to double click on White River Priory, and it puts a black X in the box. And then you want to come down here to the button called Set as Active File. And you can see it's now changed this to the active file, and it'll show all the parent masters that go along with the White River Priory, which is one of the reasons why we did enable multiple master loads to make this do more than 2. So we press OK. And it's going to start doing things like loading the files. And if you did not disable the messages, you'll get a bunch of pop-ups and different things to go through, and we're going to skip over those for brevity's sake to make sure that we can get through that, but we'll go through all the error messages. All right, we're coming to a close here, and like I said, we skipped over all the pop-up messages because I think those are pretty much, if there was something important, I will tell you, and we're just going to let it finish up. Okay, now you can see this is the error pop-up message. It's all the warnings that come along with this, and you're going to find a bunch of stuff that you can't do anything about, but I wouldn't worry about. And just so you know what you're looking at, potentially duplicate land encountered in file dongar.esm. Okay, those could be problems. And this is very important for what we'll come back to later. But these are two of the things that, will be an issue later on when we start talking about things. And most of these are, automatic doors and different things like Ingval Barrow. You'll see that almost every mod, that the Ingval Barrow door is too close, and that's fine. You'll see some nav mesh issues. I wouldn't worry about that too much. If it's just stuff that you have to be aware of when you start doing location mods, you may have bad nav meshes, and that's perfectly fine. But just remember that a lot of mods will have errors in them, and that's perfectly fine. Don't freak out about them. It's just going to depend on the errors that you may run into when you start using the mod. But just go ahead and go in and say, okay, well, that looks good. We're going to go ahead and clear it. And we're going to close it. Now you think, what do we do next? Well, for a simple one like this, there's not much else to do. You just go up and you can either hit the save button right there, or you can go into file and hit save. That's just showing what I do. And it's going to go through it all over again and give you a whole bunch of more error messages and saying, yeah, this stuff doesn't work and we don't like this and we don't like that. And that's perfectly fine. You go ahead and clear those out and close it. And you can see down here at the bottom, it says saving is done. And that's essentially all you need to worry about. So go ahead and close the creation kit. What Mod Organizer does when you run it through the creation kit through Mod Organizer 2 is it puts everything in your overwrite. Click on your overwrite and you see there is your brand new White River Priory 1.2.esp. You may think, well, is it there or is it in White River Priory? No, it's removed it from the from the mod itself so that you don't have any more optional ESPs. So it's actually left it in your override. You can see now that Mod Organizer 2 has recognized that it doesn't have any data in it, and that's perfectly fine because you've set up a file outside of it. Now, before you go too far, and this message is saying you have something in your overwrite, and that's fine. You have something in your overwrite mod, that's good. We're going to run loot. I want to show you something. Here's loot. This is the basics, Skyrim update, Dawnguard, Hearthfires, Dragonborn, and White River Priory. It doesn't really know what to do with it because it hasn't got any real good information on it, and that's fine. It would move it around normally using the information that it has within the mod itself to kind of sort itself out. But you still need to use basic common sense on sorting these things out. But I wanted to show you this. There's no warnings. There's nothing here. You think, well, it's a simple ESP, right? Well, yeah, sort of. I'm not going to bother sorting it. We're just going to close it. Now, something you should do with all of your mods, and we can just leave it in the overwrite where it is right now, and we can fix it later, is run SE Edit on it. And remember, we're using SE Edit, and if you're running SE Edit, and this is a very special tool, you need to have this if you're going to be using any type of mod conversions. You can see it is the only one clicked. We're going to double click on White River Priory. And it's loaded up all the required masters that will go along with it. And once it's done loading it in the background loader is finished, we are going to highlight it. And just like we were cleaning mods for, cleaning your masters and cleaning mods, we're going to do the same thing on White River Priory. We're going to select the mod and we're going to right click it and we're going to apply filter for cleaning. Okay, and the background loader is finished and you can see it's processed a whole bunch of files because Dawnguard's in there and that takes up a lot. Let's go ahead and do it again. We're going to right click on the mod and remove identical to master records. And you're saying, well, it didn't have any dirty edits, right, Cal? No, just trust me on this. We're going to press this. And it processed 2,263 records and removed 22 identical to master records. And those are based off of the errors that you saw as far as nav meshes. And you can see all those things that we talked about, nav meshes, inside the errors that you saw in the creation kit. And you can see that they basically removed a bunch of cells, temporary cells and whatnot. And that's very common. And that means that changes that the special edition had, even though it was cleaned, and I can verify it was clean because I've used this mod a bunch, it was considered clean in the original Skyrim. It's not clean for special edition. And a lot of mods, not most of them, but a lot of mods require cleaning for special edition when you convert them over. So we've removed the identical to master records, and we are going to go ahead and undelete and disable references. Plugin contains one deleted nav mesh, which cannot be undeleted. Okay, that's fine, but at least we know it's now clean. And the mod that we go ahead and say yes, White River Priory, select OK, and it will make changes to the ESP inside of the White River Priory. You can see that it's go ahead and it's now made the changes and it's now clean. We can go ahead and close this. So what do we do with that ESP? We don't want to just drag it back in there because that's the wrong thing. It's showing White River Priory and it doesn't show it as SE, but we create a separate file on our desktop. When we go into where you keep Mod Organizer, and I keep mine under Steam Apps Common, Mod Organizer 2, overwrite, there's our ESP. So we're just going to minimize this down a little. Let's just slide it over. And you can see the date. This was done on 7/9/2016. We are going to delete that. And we are going to drag and drop the new one that we created on 9/8/2017 and drag it in. And now we can go ahead, now that we know that it's in there, we can go ahead and delete from our overwrite folder the mod that we have there. Just delete it. Now, there are multiple ways of doing this. I'm sure that somebody else will say, oh, that's just stupid. Well, yeah, but this is just how I do things. And now that you see it overwrites clean, and we can now delete the old mod. Why do we doing this? Removing the old mod? Yes. And we go into our downloads, and we can now delete the original White River Priory mod 75803. Minimize that down, close that down. And I want you to go ahead, and we have White River Priory. It now has the new one in it. We can go ahead and take this. I know it doesn't, I don't know why it doesn't show a file in there. We know it does. But anyways, go ahead and right click on it. And we are going to add to archive White River Priory SE temp. Why do we do that first? Temp. Just so you know that you can go ahead and install this again and install it again. Manual. Set data directory, White River Priory 1.2.esp. See, now with that naming convention, now it shows up as full name, and activate it. And you can go into your game and go see if it's there. That's the easiest way to do it. That way, if there's any problems, you haven't, changed any names. If it all checks out, you can just go ahead and, delete this or do whatever you want to do with it. I'm just going to remove the mod. And I'm going to remove that one. Now that we've gone through in the game, we're just going to assume that it's there. And we can now go ahead and rename. Since we've gone through in the game and you have gone through the game to check it to make sure it works correctly, we're going to rename it just to White River Priory _SE. So it's done. That means that all the changes that you did to it were contained in a temporary file until you've checked it and you've gone through and made sure it all works and that everybody looks correct. And everything works correctly, and now go save this someplace. Don't just install it into your game and assume that it'll be there later on. Make sure you go put this someplace where you can keep track of it. So we can go ahead and delete the old mods off your list. Of course, I keep everything in that giant folder with all my mod conversions. Okay, that's pretty simple. That's a very simple thing in ESP that doesn't have any extra parts and pieces to it. Let's go ahead and talk about Nexus Mod Manager. Okay, Nexus Mod Manager, and you can see I've gone through, I brought back the White River Priory and the White River Priory _SE folder, and you can see it's back to our 2016 ESP. Nothing's changed. So what we're going to do is, this is a temporary working folder. I always make working folders on my desktop for different things, and it'll make sense later on. Just trust me on this. So let's go ahead and do this for Nexus Mod Manager. So we're going to drag our archive in there, and we can see I always have unofficial Skyrim patches going on there. Even my blank one, if you have a separate profile, whatever it is. Your Weasel has multiple in there, you can see, but I always have a vanilla where nothing is activated, and this becomes very important. White River Priory we're going to activate it. There we go, and it's active. Now let's go see what it does, because remember, Nexus Mod Manager works differently. Into our main Skyrim directory. And under data, you will find whiteriverpriory.esp. And you can see this is the install date that we installed it, which is right now. But it doesn't have the actual ESP, all that information on there. It is contained under your data. So it's under Steam Apps Common Skyrim Special Edition data. You can see the whiteriverpriory.esp. Just remember that time, 3:32. We're going to close that down. And we are going to run Skyrim Special Edition Creation Kit independently. If you have it on your desktop, you should. Because if you're using Nexus Mod Manager, you need to run it from your desktop, not through the Mod Manager, because you can't do that. Just go and run it. And we'll do the same thing. We'll just go ahead and activate that mod. We can see White River Priory. Just double click it and set as active. And we're going to do the same thing we did with Mod Organizer 2. Select OK. Okay, just like before, it's going to give a bunch of messages, and I'll just go ahead and clear that out. And we're going to save the file and close the creation kit. All right, now you can go ahead and go into your game folder, and or you can just go through your desktop icon, whatever you have, and go into data. And the White River Priory, you can see, has a new time, 3:35. Before it was 3:32. So this is the new ESP that's been converted over to Skyrim Special Edition. Okay, we need to run the same thing as before. We can go ahead and we don't need to run loop, but we will run SSE edit and do the same process over again. Apply filter for cleaning. Remove identical to master records. Yes. Remove 22 records just like before. And undelete and disable references. One deleted nav mesh cannot be deleted. Okay, that's great. And so we go ahead and save the file. Now we can go back into our game folder again and look for data. And the White River Priory has the same time because we didn't make any changes to it. Now, what do we do with this? We are going to go ahead and cut that mod out and place into, delete that one, and place into the new one, which has 3:35. So that's the correct mod in there. So just like before, you go in and, create a new archive, test it out, see if it works. Make sure you remove the old one first. We're going to undelete and delete the mod and delete it from there. And go ahead and test your game out. And once you are sure that it is done correctly, you can go ahead and change the name to White River Priory and stash it away someplace in case you ever need to reinstall the mod for whatever reason. That's basically how it works with Nexus Mod Manager. Not that much different, but you got to know where things are. So we will now backtrack and we will now do the Miraval mod with Mod Organizer 2, show you some special stuff, and then do it again for Nexus Mod Manager. All right, now let's talk about the Miraval. And Miraval has a unique, situation with it. I want to show you this because it is unique and the other things you have to know. Certain characters, whenever you have a ESP that contains a follower, there may be some files generated with the CK, not always, but sometimes, that you may not be aware of. And this is why we're going to be doing it this way. You can see it's a single ESP, but we need to go ahead and show you this stuff. Let's open a Mod Organizer again. You can see I already have it installed in my downloads. We're going to install in the game. Manual looks good. And we're going to activate it. Go to our plugins. It is the only one activated. Let's run the CK. Okay, and just like before, we're going to open the file up. We're going to double click to activate it, set active file, and press OK. In this case, we only have one parent master. Go ahead and click OK. Okay, we get to our warnings thing, and basically all of these are automatic doors. We can go ahead and close that down, and we can go ahead and save that file. And saving's done. We're going to, we have some interesting stuff. Oh, okay, should have been interesting. It wasn't converted in the CK properly, so it's going to tell us, hey, you know what? There's some stuff that wasn't done. We're going to do it for you. Okay. Let's go ahead and close that down, and we can see that it is saving is done. We'll go ahead and close it down. Okay, let's go check out what's in our override. I think it's going to be something interesting. I know it's something interesting. And open it up. Oh, look at that. We have a new ESP, and we have textures, some face gen stuff, and some meshes. Okay, so we've got some extra things, and this is why I wanted to show you all these different things to show that sometimes the CK will add more information if it's missing stuff. And you can continue on down this thing. We got some new meshes, and we've got some new texture files and the TGAs. We'll talk about that in a second. Let's go ahead and close that down. We know that's in there, so we can go ahead and run our SE edit through the Mod Organizer 2 to make any dirty changes. So double click, just like before, apply filter for cleaning, remove identical to masters, process 18 records, removed one identical to master record. We can go ahead and undelete and disable references. I know we're not going to get anything, and undeleted records 0. We can go and close that, and we are going to save the file. Now we know it's in our overwrite. We're just going to minimize that down, go back into where I keep my Mod Organizer 2 overwrite file, and we'll be able to see exactly what happened. Now, remember we talked about we have a new ESP. It matches our timestamp just fine. Meshes. character, face gen data, face geometry, Miravel.esp. This is important. Remember that. Miravel.esp. And you have 2 NIF files. Since these files were created by the Special Edition Creation Kit, you do not need to optimize these meshes. Just remember that. There's 2 meshes. Under Textures, Actors, Character, Face Gen Data, Face Tint, Miravel.esp. Remember these names, Miravel.esp. You have a DDS file, a TGA file that is named exactly as the DDS. Don't ask me why the Creation Kit for Special Edition generates a TGA when the Special Edition doesn't even recognize that texture. I don't understand it myself, but that's the way it is. And then you have this one that matches this name as well. So you have 2 extraneous files. I would go ahead and delete these because you don't need them, quite frankly. Now, you may be wondering, why are these things important? Well, we need to include them with the mod. And if you don't include them with the mod, this is what you'll get. Blackface Bug. And this is what happens when you don't include these new meshes and textures into your new mod that you create for your follower. Don't ask me why she's naked. That's just the way the mod author did it. Okay? Just trust me on this. It's a mod thing. He did it for a specific reason. But we need to add those to the mod. So we'll get back to our plain overwrite where we have meshes, textures, and the Miravel ESP. We're going to move this over, open up our temporary file, and we are going to go ahead and delete the old ESP, copy all 3 of those new items, the meshes, the textures, and the Miravel.esp, copy them, or you can cut and paste. It's either one. It doesn't make a difference to me. And paste them in. And I'm just going to delete these so I can clear my overwrite. And go back into Mod Organizer and remove the old mod. In our new mod, we have meshes and textures, Miravel.esp. Like I said, it is a temp file just to go ahead, so you can go ahead and, go ahead and test it. And that way you don't get things confused between what's real and what's not. Because if you need to make changes or try it again, you can go ahead and do that without getting confused. If it wasn't a finalized file, you would go ahead and you would get yourself confused. And this is just the way I do it. So once you've finalized it and looked at it in your game and say, okay, that looks good, we can go ahead and rename it SE, stash it someplace, and then reinstall it into your game with the new correct name. So with that out of the way, and remember we talked about some of the notes where the new meshes and textures will be, we'll go into Nexus Mod Manager and show you that as well. Let me go clean up my desktop. Okay, and we're back with Mod Manager, Nexus Mod Manager, and we're going to go ahead and put in our new, our old Legacy Edition Miravel in there, and we are going to activate it. There we go. Now we have it activated, and we'll just go check real fast. And there is, it's in data, excuse me. Data, and there is Miravel. So she has been installed. Now let's go ahead and run the creation kit. Go through the same process before, double click and set to active, and click OK. It's going to process everything, and we'll just kind of go over the highlights very quickly. Okay, and just like before, this is the same information we have with Nexus or with Mod Organizer 2. Close it down, and we are going to save the file. Same errors. Okay, fine. I didn't clear them, so it looks like different. Okay, close it down. Now, I checked with Dark Fox 127, and he says there's no way for the creation kit to tell you what it has generated. In other words, you never really know. And just like I showed you with Mod Organizer 2, sometimes it'll generate stuff, but there's no way of telling you what it is. And when you have Nexus Mod Manager, you have no way of knowing what just happened. So we'll get back to that in just a second, but you still need to go through and run SSE edit, excuse me, wrong place, SSE edit, and go through and clean it just like before. It will have that one identical to master record. You still need to clean it. I'm just going to go ahead and skip this out so we can go through and talk about what's really important, and that's in the game folder. So we have the, excuse me, I keep looking in the wrong place, data. We have the new Miravel.esp. We want to go ahead and, like I said, we don't want to leave this in there. So we're going to go ahead and open up our Miravel temporary file and delete the old one. Now that we know it's been generated correctly, I believe that was generated in 2008. But anyways, delete them on. And we're going to cut Miravel out of our data folder, cut, and paste into our temporary folder. So now we have our ESP. But remember what we learned about from Mod Organizer 2, there are meshes and textures. Where are those? Let's go find them. It's under data once again, Steam Apps Common Special Edition Data, and under meshes. Let's just open up and take a look. Meshes, actors, character, face gen data, face geometry. Oh, look, there's Miravel.esp. Huh. There's a holdover from when I ran some tests before. Sometimes, like I said, things get stuck in your data files and you never really know for sure. So this is a mod I was testing through Nexus Mod Manager, and it left a holdover. So just remember, you're going to have to get rid of that at some point. But Miravel.esp, open that up, and there's the two meshes, the two NIF files. Okay. What do we do with that? Well, we still need to go back and check our textures, but we want to talk about meshes first. Go ahead and copy the whole thing. Open up your temporary folder and paste it in. So with meshes, we know there's a holdover in this. Actors, character, face gen data, face geometry, and companion Wallfire and Miravel. We can delete companion Wallfire. And you may have more than one. You may have 4 or 5 in here. You may have 6, 7, 8. Just delete all the other stuff. Don't have any better way of doing this. This is just how I do it. So now you know your meshes are correct. And you don't have anything in there other than what you need for Miravel. And under textures, actors, character, face gen data, face tint, Miravel.esp. Wallfire didn't hang around in this one. I don't know why, but that's just the way it is. So you know that's good. Just copy the textures, open up your temp file, and paste it in. So, remember we talked about textures, actors before doing anything else. Even though you could leave them in there, and I've done testing with it, you can leave the TGAs. They're ignored. The game will not crash because it's a TGA. It's just ignored. But I think for good form, you should delete the TGAs. Just like that. And now you know where everything is on this. If you were to be, completely correct on this, I would go ahead and delete the old ones anyways. If you're using Nexus Mod Manager, it's going to put them right back. Don't worry about it when you reinstall the mod, but you don't want to have anything extra. Textures, actors, character, face gen data, face tint. Don't worry about leaving these folders the way it is. It's going to repopulate eventually anyways. Delete. Okay, they're just empty folders. And basically you've done it. You can now uninstall and delete the old mod because it has the wrong reference number. It won't know what it's doing. Delete the mod. And then you go through and close that down. Compress to Miravel with unique, or you can just put it as temp file. And there you have it, and reinstall it into Nexus Mod Manager, and then go test it. And if you're sure that it's tested out correctly, uninstall and delete it again, and then change your name to final so you know that you have the right one. And then stash it away someplace because you may need it, especially if you use Nexus Mod Manager. You won't have a download folder for, like with Mod Organizer 2. But that's the basic thing. I mean, are there better ways of doing it? Quite possibly. That's the way I do it. This is the way my brain thinks and how I kind of worked out how things kind of should be going along. But if you have better ways of doing it, you find a better flow to make things work. I can convert a mod. When Stu from Couch Warrior TV contacted me and said he needed Wallfire done. Okay, boom, 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 bang, bang, bang. I even extracted some BSAs, moved some things around, got it to work correctly in about 10 minutes. Just that fast. It's not that hard. But you just need to have a good flow so you keep yourself organized. That's it for now. In the next episode, we'll start doing more things. We'll start expanding our knowledge base to show you more tools and how things work together. My name's Cal. I'm from Dirty Weasel, and I'm signing off.